Hello, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to Machinations Livestream. It's great to be here with you today. We're going to have some fun and be looking at leveling up systems today. Today I've got Mo and Cesar with me. Mo, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Let everybody know what you're doing.
Sure. Hey everyone, so I'm Mo and I handle game design relations at Machinations.
And Cesar, you're out there. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Cesar. I'm a diagram craftsman for the team, and I usually tag team with Matthew in these live streams. Yeah.
Perfect. We're going to be having some fun today, looking at leveling up systems. And Mo, this was your idea. Do you want to talk us through what you were thinking about doing today?
Yeah, so level up systems are pretty interesting. At their core, they're pretty simple, but as you go beyond just the abstract idea of it, you can craft some very interesting systems that come out of it, and you can really optimize for complexity. And when you have a series of interesting decisions, you end up usually with something pretty fun, especially if the player has sort of like a choice and conflict. For example, when it comes to usually when you level up in RPGs, you gain a skill point, right? And that's your first choice and conflict. Do I spec here or do I spec there? And so building out of leveling up systems, you can come up with these kind of decisions that really make the player sort of play to their strengths. Someone might prefer melee, someone might prefer range, for example, or some might prefer magic. So this is just one of the layers of complexity that can be added to a leveling system to make it fun and intuitive. And what's interesting is today, we're not just going to be exploring one layer. I think we're going to be delving a bit deeper, so that should be pretty fun.
Perfect. So let's open up our canvas. I've got a nice blank canvas for us. As always, down in the description below the stream, if you click on the link, it's going to take you straight through to the model. If you click on it right now, it's going to take you to this beautiful blank page and this beautiful blank canvas that we're going to fill up this afternoon. So often when I'm thinking about building out some kind of leveling system, the place that I like to start off with, and especially for the kind of the purposes of what we're doing today, is how much experience are we going to be awarding the player, and then actually using that as kind of a benchmark to look at how our leveling system is going to work from there. And so for this, I'm just going to do a really simple source pool. It's going to be D100, and so that's going to be our experience points. And I guess we can then go from here. Cesar, where would you normally start off once you've got your XP points and the rest of your game mechanic going on to create your XP? How do you think about starting to build out the model?
Well, first thing I would do is I would probably set at least draw out a mechanic for what the future levels cost will be like. So what will my experience look like? Will I be leveling up? Will I be spending experience points to purchase skills instead of leveling up? That depends on the type of game. So I usually try to figure that out first. What's experience going to be used for, basically.
Perfect. I guess there's a couple of ways we could do it. We could do something linear so that it's a fixed amount of XP. I'm making that too high. Let's do 150. The player gets an amount of XP, and it could be the same for each level that they go to, gradually ramping up. So if this was just a level. We could do something straightforward like that, or we could have a kind of exponential curve in there as well. And one of the things I find, actually I'm going to do it here, is I'm going to split this off slightly. I'm going to hold down the Alt key, add a extra pool in there, just to allow us to keep track of how many XP the players received in total. So using that +1 configuration on the state connection, it's going to add 1 resource into the right hand pool for every resource in the left hand pool. Then it allows us to then drain down the right hand pool, and I'm going to call that XP spend. Handy trick to be able to keep track of what's going on there. And in fact, I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to have a system where the amount of XP that the player is receiving ramps up. So as they progress through the game has increased levels of complexity somehow, which is going to add the rate at which it grows to be faster. And I am going to make that linear. So every 500, and that's going to add on 100. So just to simulate, this is my little black box, if you like, that's going to have my player producing the XP points, and then this is where we're going to work today, just to look at how we're going to spend them and how we're going to create this leveling up system. So Cesar, where would you want to go next with our leveling up system?
I guess what happens when you level up, if we're gonna go linear and not play with the leveling up formula anymore.
Well, up to you. I think it might be fun to do an array for that.
We can do that as well, I guess. Yeah, I guess the next step would be to see what leveling up means. What is it? A stat increase? Is it? Does it give you a skill point? Does it give you divinity style, like every few levels also some kind of special skill point? Does it give you both?
Nice. What do you fancy, Mo?
Right. So I wrote some interesting notes that maybe we could explore.
Yeah.
So I guess the first one would be, we have a set of attributes, maybe like 5 attributes in our game, and leveling up, levels each of these attributes, and we can have as well, skill trees. So maybe leveling up gives you a skill point, and like Cesar was saying, we can have it so every 5 levels or so you get a perk unlocked, so you get to access a perk. And I think this would be sort of like a good way to sort of deep dive into the leveling system and the complexity that could arise from a basic leveling system. And if we still have time, there is something else I'd like to explore, but we'll see when we get there.
Okay, keeping us in suspense.
Yeah,
nice.
Pretty
so
much.
Where should we start then?
So we could start off with deciding, first of all, are we going to keep it linear, or are we going to make it so that leveling sort of has like a different, maybe an exponential curve where it takes more XP to level up each time you gain a new level. So I guess that would be the first question we need to answer.
Yeah, and actually I'm gonna let's build all 3 just to get crazy, and let's just to show the difference between them to start off with. So I'm just going to use my XP generator. I'm going to move this right out of the way. I've coloured it in red, and we can basically ignore it for now. And let's have a look at what those three options really are with leveling up systems. So the first one is linear. And what that's going to do, that's just going to have a fixed amount and it's going to level up accordingly. We can then have exponential. And you're brilliant at these formulas, Cesar. Do you want to build a formula in this register for me?
Yeah, sure. But what's the last type, Matthew? You can start explaining the last type while I type the formula.
So you do the formula on there. I'll explain the last type. And the last type is going to be an array. Now, I have been doing arrays for a while now. And on average, I get them right 50% of the time. That's just, you know, they're either right or they're wrong, but they're always have some error in them. So I'm going to call this an array. Let's give myself a bit more space so I can make this nice and neat. So, oh, can you move that out of the way? This is level up cost, and I'm going to set this up with some square brackets, and I'm just going to ballpark guess some figures. So square brackets, 500, 750, 1000, 1250, 1750, 2000, 500, 4000. Square brackets again. That's probably not going to be enough levels. Now this is where I go wrong, Cesar. I always do this the wrong way around. Let's see if I can get it right this time. A plus 1. No, look, I've definitely done it wrong.
You've done it right, but you are conditioning the connection.
Oh, that's what it is. Look at that. I got my formula the right way around this time. I'm famous for getting this formula, the simplest thing possible, the wrong way around. The letter B, which is coming from the array, goes outside of the brackets, and then the letter A. And I always put the +1 in here, which is a trick that Cesar taught me recently. The reason that I do this is by having that +1 in here, rather than it's got to look, it's looking for the very first number. So the first number would be 0, and there isn't a 0 in the array. It starts off with the first number. So by looking at right at the start, if I just do one step, there's 0 in this pool, which is the letter A. So 0 plus 1, it's then going to look at the first number in the array. So my first number is 500. So that's going to return 500 back as the answer from the array. Then as this continues, as we level up, it's going to cycle through these different numbers. So the big difference between these...
If your game starts from level 1, just ditch the +1, just B and
Perfect. So what we now have is we've got 3 examples. So we've got a linear progression system where it's going to be a fixed 150 XP points each time. We've got an exponential where we're increasing the amount, and this time, Cesar, you're using the formula here of power 1.15. So basically it's increasing it by 15% for each level. Down the bottom here, we've got to the end of my array. So we obviously need to add some more numbers into this, but what's happening is it's going to go and look up each individual number. So if we want to get really granular and specific over the exact upgrade cost for each level, that's where we're going to use an array. Perfect. Mo, does that make sense to you?
Makes perfect sense. Now it's time to sort of, see what are the rewards from leveling up and what does it mean, once you've hit a new level.
Perfect. Do we know, actually, just before we do that, do we know what level we want them to get to within a certain number of steps? Do we want to put a level cap on it, and then we could see if we could set all of these so that they all reach the same level?
We can cap it at 50, maybe.
50? Perfect. So I'm going to set my step count to 50. Just going to add in the XP points pool into the chart. In the chart, I'm then going to add an indicator and do mean average. Clear my chart, and let's do 20 quick runs. Because I've got some randomness in here, it's a random number, so it's gonna be slightly exponential, but it's going to be a slightly different result each time. So here, as my average, we were getting 58,874. So 58,874 divided by 50 levels. So that's nice and simple for our linear option. We're going to set that at 1,100. That's 177. It's going to be trickier to do it on here.
You're not getting to level 15 50 steps anyway.
No?
As it is right now, not even close.
Okay, well, let's have a look at what level that's getting to. I'm going to add it into the chart. Because our XP number's going really big, I'm going to remove it. I don't want it. Just going to look at the level that we're getting to here. I'm going to do just 10 quick runs. So because we've got that exponential growth of XP points that we're receiving as it gradually ramps up as the player progresses, we've then got it kind of slow, fast, and then as that exponential curve kicks in, it then gets harder and harder. But we need to make it slightly more gradual because we're only getting, let's have a look at the average. Uh, 28. So what I can choose, should we make that 0.5?
Well, we can also change, it's going to be too low, but we can change the initial cost. Instead of 150, make it lower.
Like that. 50?
Might be too low, I don't know.
That's
one way to find out.
There's one quick way to find out. Oh no, not quite.
Okay, then maybe we reduce the curve a bit. Make it 1.12.
1.12. It's very specific, Chesa.
I was between 1.10 and 1.15. Okay, 1.10. The nice part is that it's really quick to do. Just swap a number and hit quick run again. So
not quite there.
I know what the problem is here, Matt. The problem is that we only convert once. As you can see, the graph, it's a
I see.
It's a straight slope. The problem is that we only convert once per step, so we're never going to get to 50 steps.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you're right.
You can check more than 50 steps. And I think the numbers can be higher because that was probably the problem before as well. So
let's have a look. So clear the chart. Do 10 quick plays.
See, that's the straight part is where it
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
And it's getting there. It takes a little while for some of these early levels.
Then they're making a lot of XP.
Is the top one getting to level 50? Probably not. Because at the start, the player isn't making enough XP. I'm only going to do once per step. Ah! So let's put a quick hack in here. Space this out slightly. Am I doing this right, Chezza?
I don't know what you're doing.
Doing multiple conversions in a step.
You I see.
Will that work like that? Because I've got an XP spend curve, I think it'll work.
That one won't work.
No? Oh no, because of course it needs to change each level.
Yeah.
How can we fix it then, Chezza?
You come in with an extremely complex mathematical formula that I've never implemented.
Oh, good. Good. Well, what we could just do is we could just do 50 steps worth of resources, 50 steps worth of XP being generated, and we can work it out as we go. That way, might take a couple of extra steps, but it's going to get there eventually.
You're generating 50 resources per step.
Oh,
You wanted to, yeah.
now I've broken all of these.
The first one I think is working. Oh no, it's not actually. Yeah. Nice.
There we go. Fix that now. So we'll get 50 levels worth of XP. Our XP our XP generator got a bit more complicated. And then, right, this will now, if there's a bit of excess, it'll get there eventually at the end of 100 steps. So let's have a look at quick plays. Nice, so it's getting up to exactly 50.
What pool are we looking at?
This one. Exponential. It's actually ramping up perfectly to... Oh, it's going... It's giving us about 50 by the end of the simulation. So bang on where we wanted it.
I see a question in the chat. What does the red system simulate?
Oh, what we were doing, Daniel, is we were just looking at a XP generation little system. So imagine we had a great big complex game going on, but rather than building all of that for this model, we're just doing a system that's going to generate how much XP the game's going to create as we go through the game. So what we've just done, we've got the end of 50 levels of the game and all the XP, 53,000 XP points that have been generated. We've got each of these pools hopefully aiming for about level 50. Looks like that one needs to be slightly less. So the top one's then linear, next one's exponential, then the next one's going to be using an array. So Mo, what was the next step? So we wanted to look at what we're going to do with these levels as the player progresses through the game.
Right.
How
And
are we
I
gonna
think
spend these.
so. I think the first thing we need to do is the skill point. So you have a tree, and you can invest 1 skill point every time you level up in whichever tree you like. So maybe you can have 2 trees or something, and you can pick one each time you level up. And every level you get 1 skill point, and that doesn't change.
Nice. Now, I could go through and work out all of the different costs to get this bottom one up to level 50 as well. But I think everyone understands how that mechanic works. So let's just go off of these top 2 and look at the options around skill trees. So Cesar, how would you build out a skill tree?
I like skill trees that have certain skills that have prerequisites. So you need to unlock skill A before you can unlock skill B. Or I kind of like, so if it were up to my personal preference, I usually like skill trees kind of like Dragon Age it has, where you only level a skill once, right? There's no multiple tiers to a single skill. Not like Witcher, for instance, where you can level the same skill multiple times. So if it were up to me, I would go with that approach. You can only select a skill once to upgrade, and certain skills require other previous skills to be unlocked, probably.
Let's go for that then.
Perfect. And is it just a linear skill tree that kind of moves down 2 lines, or is it we're going to have different paths available?
Well, Dragon Age 1 had a linear skill tree, so the one that you have on the screen right now. Dragon Age Inquisition has sort of like a tree where you can go into multiple paths. Whichever one is fine for me. I guess the first one is definitely easier to do, the linear one. The branching one shouldn't be too hard, I think. So we can do whichever one.
Perfect. What do you fancy, Mo? Let's put the choice on you.
Yeah, I mean, for the sake of simplicity, we can just go for the linear one for this live stream. Let's go for that.
Chicken. Okay. That's fine. We'll go for an easy one. So Cesar, how would you start to build this out? Presumably, you're gonna convert the levels into skill points.
Yeah. I'm guessing 1 skill point per level would be what we're going for. And only 1 skill point is required to unlock every skill, basically. But some of them have prerequisites, as I said.
Perfect. So here I've got state connection with a +1 into another pool. So it's going to create 1 skill point for every level that the character unlocks. So here, skill points are then being generated. So would you do this with a gate, Cheza?
Yeah, I guess so. Gate, converter, they both work. But yeah, probably a gate. Now it's up to if we want to have some meaningful player choice in here or not, I guess. Otherwise, you can just like randomly level up a skill. Now we're gonna need some conditions here, because if we go linear, then we're gonna make it so that the one on the right, every skill needs to have the skill on its left unlocked right before you can unlock that certain skill. So we're gonna need some conditions in here.
How would you approach these, the conditions? Is that something just simple?
That's a very simple way to do it, yeah.
So that one's got to be greater than
0.
0.
Yeah, that's.
And if I put a 1 in there, oh, I did that wrong. Even empty, but a capacity of 1 with a block overflow.
Yep. Again, using capacity is probably the easiest way here. We could use multiple conditions, but capacity does the job just fine. So yeah.
Don't worry, just I'll do all of these. You just sit there looking pretty. That's fine.
I can do the ones on the top actually, if we want to do them the same way.
I'm joking with you. I don't mind. We can go either way. Is that because I told a joke at you? No, you're gonna move my beautiful pool.
I didn't. Or did I?
Capacity of 1. Add in that snake connection. Keep on forgetting to turn my zoom off. I will get left. Capacity of 4. Right, let's have a look. See what happens. Nice. It's kind of working. We need to finish off those. I'll do that last one on the right. Greater than 0. I do all of those at the same time. Yeah.
We can make the gate random.
That's true. So it's gonna, rather than, now what I was doing, actually, because that's a great example, I'm going to put that back to deterministic. I'm going to slow down the model. I'm going to show what was happening there. Let's just let it collect up a little bit of, see what's happening with this. So here, it's going to come into this pool. This pool is 251. This pool up here is 259. So because we added these objects to the canvas in this order, the deterministic gate is just going to fill these pools in that order. So because these pools were added, so this is 257, this is 259. So because of that, this pool is then has a higher number. So it's going to go along the bottom here, and then it's going to start off with the top and unlock these other ones. By making that random, it's going to ignore the object number, and it's so when I hit play, it's going to go into either of these two skill trees, and then it's going to randomize which skill is going to get opened up next. But of course, because it's Machinations during a live stream, it's going to do it in perfect order. Well, thankfully, it broke that order just every time.
It is a part of randomness, so.
Yeah. I think, question from Eric, I think it's an abstraction of ways you can gain XP with good question. Is that right?
I
Yeah,
think
that's absolutely right. It's a super abstract way of just having something that's going to generate us some numbers and an amount of XP that's going to gradually tick up. And we're going to look at these different systems. I missed one earlier. So we've got 2 trees. That was super easy, Cesar.
Yeah. We can do the other 3, or
Well, the interesting thing is here. So we're going to need at least 50 options. If every one of these costs 1 skill point, and we're going to go up to 50 levels, and means we're going to have a skill tree of at least 50 different things to come up with.
yeah, that is true. The game I was thinking when I was talking about this, Dragon Age, has a skill level cap of 25, I believe. It does have a big tree, but I think has a, yeah. We can do 50. I mean, it's copy paste, most of it. What I was concerned about, if you saw earlier, was that once, but that's not going to be a problem if we're doing 50 skills, was that once we filled out our different skills, skill points were being drained by the gate, right, instead of being used. But if we're doing 50 skills, then the player's never going to run out of
That's right.
places to
We've only
engage.
got 10 skills.
Yeah.
So what I was talking about is, if I look at this, what's going on
Yeah.
now? We're generating, with the players going past a level, they're generating a skill point. That skill point's coming into this gate, but because all of these pools have a capacity of 1 with a block overflow, what's happening there is there's nowhere for those resources to go, so they get drained inside the gate.
Yeah.
Nice. Mo, how do you want to scale this up now?
Right. So I think we should start looking at attributes. So, RPG system, the player has a bunch of attributes, let's say strength, agility, maybe willpower, constitution, dexterity. I'm just, pulling random names from the different RPGs I've played. But, these attributes, they level up as the player levels as well. So one of the things that, we could sort of make the system a bit more complex by is, depending on the class, your attributes level up differently. But I think, this isn't what we're looking at now. We just want to make sure that these attributes just level up as the player levels up.
Yeah. Do you want them to level up automatically, or does the player receive points that they can spend?
That's a very good question, because, if we're looking at sort of the system we're designing at the moment, where, the skill trees are very linear, we want to make sure that, we're giving players a series of interesting decisions to make and a series of choices. So, we didn't really do that with skill trees. So I think it'd be a good chance to do that with the attributes, and maybe that would be a good way for the player to sort of, craft their, ideal way, craft their character in the ideal way they'd like to play the game. So, if you want to be a battle mage where you use, spells to sort of like enhance your melee, like for example, add fire to your sword, right? You can do that by speccing in strength and intellect, because usually, that's not a usual archetype. You're either like a spell-based or, magic-based class, or a strength melee class. So we want to give players the ability to sort of shape the experience how they want. And I think by letting them choose, where to spend their attributes, we give them that sense of freedom. And I think, that'd be fun to sort of diagram.
I'm also thinking that we can make it so certain skills require attribute prerequisites, like you need 15 strength to invest in this skill, for instance. Not just unlock the previous one, but you also need 15 strength. Or you also need 20 intelligence, stuff like that. So, yeah.
So what I was thinking of, and let me know what you think, is we could do that with like a spell system. So, the player, gets spells in the game, and to use these spells, you have maybe like certain tiers. So you have like, novice and intermediate and advanced, for example. And, if you look at the attributes, like 1 to 5, for example, you can use novice spells. And then from 6 to like, 10 or 11, you can use, the intermediate. And each spell belongs to a specific attribute. So you have, strength spells, you have agility spells, you have intellect-based spells. And so you're sort of gated with the spells that you can use. What do you think?
Yeah, kind of yeah. Sounds pretty similar.
Nice. While you're doing that, I just kind of scaled up that skill tree, just so that it uses up. I think we've got 20 odd of them there. Oh, got an arrow going the wrong way. So fix that. No, it was going the right way. I don't know what I was thinking.
The second to last is going the wrong way.
I knew something was going the wrong way. Marvelous, thank you, Chezza. So, how many is that going to give us?
20, right?
10. Yeah, so that gives us 20. It's a super quick way of counting lots of items. If you're too lazy like me, you can then just select add items to library. It will show you how many components there are in it. So if you highlight just those pools, right click, add to private library, right, there's 10 there. Because I struggled to count that high, this, Cesar.
It does tend to get messy, especially where you're scaling up, and at some point you forget how much you've copy pasted, and just going back and counting everything can be an actual pain. So yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to double this and make it 40 skills.
Yeah, but just a suggestion. Could you do, instead of prolonging the same skill tree, can't we do 2 different skill trees altogether? Like have 4 in total?
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking. I was going to do something like this.
Yeah. If you're feeling lazy to draw everything out, you can just so for instance, instead of going straight into the first into the gate at the top, you can just place a gate here that leads into the other 2. So that way it's just
genius, Cesar.
Yeah.
Look at that. There was me. I was ready then to move all of these connections up to there.
Yeah,
but that's
no one should have to go through that.
Genius way of doing it. So that gives us kind of 40 skills, 40 pools now to be unlocked. Obviously going to have some game impact. What are we going to do with our stats then? How should we start building that up?
What Mo was suggesting is we have skills that, so for instance, when you have between 1 and 5 strength as an attribute, you're considered to have novice strength. When you get between 5 and 10, you are at a beginner level, let's say. 10 to 15 is intermediate, and so on. And some of the skills require you to be on intermediate level, for instance. So you cannot unlock a specific skill until you're intermediate strength. Some other skills will require advanced intelligence, later in the tree, obviously. So there's going to be new conditions coming into our skills, right? You're not only going to need to unlock the previous one, you're also going to need to have a stat check before. So
nice. Well, actually, I think we are going to need a fifth. Well, this works quite well because we could then have one skill tree for each of the different attributes that did you come up with these names?
So I was thinking of something, and let me know what you think. I was thinking, that the strength, agility, and intelligence could be for the spells, right? And we can have like the spell system. And that, as I look at the skill tree, I feel, it is very linear. And I feel that, like Cesar was saying, there has to be a deeper level of complexity to make sure that the player is making interesting choices when it comes to the skill trees. So maybe we can have, strength, agility, and intelligence for the spells, and maybe we can have, haste and spirit as like secondary stats that affect the skill trees. So, these affect the skills, haste and spirit, and strength, agility, and intelligence affects the spells with like the tier system.
Nice. Does that make sense, Cesar?
I'm not really sure what the difference between spell and skill is in this context. That's what I'm...
Right. So for me, skill is more like a skill tree, and spells are more like the actual, attacks or defenses that you have on your hotbar and you use in combat.
So then haste and spirit will determine the effectiveness of the spells when you use them, right? And the other attributes will affect unlocking, or is it the other way around? Or...
Yeah, so I was thinking that strength, agility, and intelligence would affect unlocking the spells. Like you can't buy the spells from the vendor unless you have that stat check. And for haste and spirit, you can't unlock the skills in the skill tree that we made unless you pass that stat check.
Okay, so spells are acquired separately from the skill tree.
Yeah, they're acquired from vendors.
Okay. Then we're gonna need, Matthew, you hear that? We're gonna need money, and we're gonna need a shop.
Nice.
For the skill tree itself, we're only gonna need haste and spirit. We can also have something for a warrior type, something like constitution. I don't know.
All right, I'll add that one in.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a system so that every level, or every few levels, that cost the amount of coins that a player is receiving is gradually ramping up. I do 5 for every few hundred.
Just as a fun fact for everyone watching, I don't know if you're aware of this, Matthew, but you know that on the state connection you can put D as well, right? Plus D something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If it does so, if you were to put D something in there, it would. So, for instance, for the experience where he had plus 100, and for every resource that would enter that pool, it would mean plus 100 resources. This way, it's going to add a random number. That number is not going to change until the pool suffers modification. So as you see, it's pretty constant until the upgrades come in.
Nice. Well, that's going to give us some money into the game.
Yeah, it's not really important how much money we're generating, it because we can determine the cost of the spell. So if we make it, depends on our game, right? If one spell is going to cost 10 coins, then it's
and I'm going to make that a orange setup just to differentiate it from our red one. So where are we going to go from here?
So there's 2 ways we go. One, we set up shop with, I don't know, 5 different spells, let's say, or 6, maybe 2 for each. attribute. And the other one is we further condition our skill tree based on haste, spirit, and constitution. We can do them in whichever order. They don't really affect each other. So
I'm not quite sure how to build it, so I'll let you start.
sure. Which one? The shop or the skills?
The skills, I think.
Okay. The skills are basically going to be conditioned. So let's say that I'm just going to give a random example. You can zoom in on the first row. I'm just going to give a random example. For instance, for the fourth skill in the first row, you're going to need a haste of at least 10, let's say. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to condition this so larger than 9 or larger equal to 10 if it's easier to track, I guess. So this way, because I'm targeting, normally now we have two conditions imposed in the same place, right? Because you need, for the fourth skill, you're going to need to unlock the third, and you're going to need at least 10 haste. Because conditions work in an OR type of logic, so if at least one of them is true, then the whole thing's going to be true. That's why we are targeting two different nodes, or a connection in a node with the connection. So we disable parts of the system. If you hit play right now, it's going to be disabled. Even as you can see, the rest of the nodes are available, but the connections are disabled. But the fourth node is disabled as well. So even if we do unlock the third skill, you can see that the fourth one does not become available because we do not have 10 haste. So yeah, it's pretty simple to do this way.
Nice. Is that what you're thinking, Mo? That type of approach to have it kind of separated out by these sorts of metrics?
Yeah, it's essentially like Cesar was saying. It's a stat check. If you pass it, then you can invest in that specific part of the skill tree.
Nice. Yeah, and that's repeating. We just have to. I mean, if we just have to determine which. So let's say that the first skill tree would be rogue oriented since it's haste, and for the fourth, let's say just add a bunch of connections this here. The adding connections part isn't really hard. It's how we want to make our game that's tricky here. So for instance, maybe I want my second skill, you'll need a stat check of 5. For my fourth one, you'll need 10, and for my eighth one, let's say that's going to be the final stat check, you're going to need 25, I guess. Now, the question that follows next, after I've done this, and should be the first question to come to anyone's mind, is how much haste does the player get throughout the game, right? When do you get haste, and how much of it?
And I think there's, what I really like in lots of different games, actually, is you can get the first couple of skills in each skill tree regardless, but then at some point the players then got to make a choice of what type of character they want to build and specialize in one particular area. So what we probably want to do is have it so that actually a player can't unlock all of the different skills in the skill tree because they won't have enough stats throughout the player journey to be able to unlock everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Then haste, spirit, and constitution should be given scarcely, and the player should start with some haste. Now we're kind of going into character creation, right? Because most of these types of games have character creators where you have your initial starting character. They can excel in one of these, maybe suck at another one. So if I were to play a ranger, I would probably start with like 8 haste and 2 constitution. Yeah, so probably the constitution tree would be a no-go for me unless I invest in it. So it kind of depends on that, but yeah, the player should have some starting out of each attribute. So haste, you can start, for instance, with, let's say, 6. I'm gonna make the display -1. Spirit and constitution, let's just put everything to 6 right now. Just have a well-rounded character so they can unlock their second skill at the moment.
Why do all of them at the same time? I don't know why doing this one at a time malarkey.
Yeah, I don't know either. Let's call it practice. Yeah, this is a well-rounded character. Other types of characters would be like 8 haste, 4 spirit, 6 constitution. You should strive to have the same total amount of points, right, that are invested. Just the places they are invested in should differ for each different class. But we're gonna go with an all-rounder for this example.
Do we want to build a random generator, character generator?
We could, but we should. So if we're doing it randomly, I think that although statistically it's very hard to happen, it is possible that no points go into Constitution, for instance. I think we should set a bare minimum into all of these for at least, let's say, 2. So you can't have lower than 2. You can't start with lower than 2 spirit or haste or
That makes sense.
And then we add, let's say that a base character should have 6 or 7 of each attribute. I don't know, whichever. If it's 6 of each attribute, and we already have 12 invested, then we're gonna need 24 more points to invest randomly. So we're just gonna generate 24 points.
I'll provide some quick commentary from a designer's point of view. Essentially, I was saying the goal of this is to, have the player play the way they want and come up with, new archetypes, and the game should support them in playing the way they want. Now, essentially, when we set up the systems to do that, they were isolated, right? The skill tree was very linear, and the stat system was just, part of the leveling system. And that allowed players to sort of like craft the character the way they wanted. However, as a designer, I want to give players a series of interesting decisions to make, and I want to create moments where there's choice and conflict for the players, so that they have like an opportunity cost in front of them, and they have to pick like one or the other. And how do we take that and have that support in the player building the character they want to play in the end, and play the way they want? So I think these are the sort of challenges that a lot of designers face when they look at a leveling system and go beyond that high level of abstraction and delve deep into creating complexity out of that system.
That makes sense. So how do we want to achieve that in the Machinations model?
So I think a good first step was the stat check. You have to pass the stat check so that you can level up your invest points in your skills. And I'm excited to see as well how we have the primary stats and the secondary stats, and how the primary stats affect the spells, and from there you can invest in like strength and intelligence, for example, and maybe use like master level spells in strength and medium level spells in intelligence, so you can craft a solid battle mage, for example, which is a unique archetype. And you can use your secondary spells. Maybe you can, rather than focusing on the constitution, because you prioritize the strength, you can maybe focus on the spirit, and have maybe more mana generated, so that you can continuously buff your weapons as you're in combat. So having secondary stats affect skills, and having primary stats affect spells, that's an interesting system to explore, and we'll see how it ends up being in the end.
Nice. So which are the primary stats and which are secondary?
So yeah, the strength, the agility, the intelligence are our primary ones, and our haste and spirit and constitutions are our secondary ones. So the ones on the left affect the spells, and the ones on the right affect the skills.
Nice. I'm just going to put a box around that. Give it a nice pukey colour. Send it to the back so we can keep track of that. another color. Send that to the back. Then I guess we've got some connections to build off of these for our different skill trees. Have you thought of any names that we would give these each skill tree?
I
The
haven't.
first one's coming off of haste. So we could just be as lazy as calling it haste skills.
Archery, call it archery.
Archery. Okay. Gonna make that nice and big. There we go. The next skill tree, should we take that off of spirit?
Yeah, sure.
And we could build it out in the same way.
Yeah. We should do one for spirit, one for constitution, and then move to the spells because I wanna implement those as well before the time runs out. So I'm gonna do the constitution one, the third one.
Perfect.
For those of you that will play with the model at the end of this, feel free to add whatever secondary attributes you want. Maybe they affect the other trees, or just use the same ones.
And what's the skill tree for spirit?
Magic.
Nice. So we've got us primary, secondary stats, archery, magic. The next one's coming off constitution. What sort of skills do you think about when you think constitution, Cheza?
I'm thinking tank. I'm not sure we should call it maybe survival or resilience.
I like survival.
Okay.
And then what are we going to do for the last two skill trees?
As I said, we can let the people, the viewers, if they want to add anything to them. Maybe they add extra attributes to the model. I think we should leave them as they are for now.
Okay. I have to drop that little connection down there so it's neat.
Okay.
Wasn't quite neat enough. I'll get it, Cheza. You're not neat enough. There we go. That's better. That's better. You've got to have nice, neat ones. Actually, one of the nice tricks Cheza's taught me is to make these connections 1 point thick rather than 2 points thick. I know we've got lots of connections there now.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, but
it does make it look much neater.
Especially when you have 1 million of them. Yeah, it really makes a difference.
And then if you send that connection to the back, grab another one. Oh, beautiful. So
let's do spells.
Let's do what?
Spells.
Spells. Nice.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start on that?
Well, we're gonna use money to purchase spells. That part I don't really care about, honestly. We can make it so out of money you can purchase, let's say, I don't know, 5 different spells. Let's go with 3 different spells, one of each stat. Just for simplicity, we can add more if we want. So how much money are we generating at the moment? Can you do a quick run for 100 steps?
Yeah.
Just so.
Indicate mean average. We do have some randomness baked into that as it goes. And 100 steps. Quick play. It's going to be slightly exponential looking. There we go. Oh, I've only got generating money for the first 50 levels.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Doesn't really matter. So the average is like
3,500.
Okay, if we do 3 spells, then let's do one cost of 1,000.
Let's have a look at the min max. Oh, we do have quite a lot of variation in there. We've got a min of 2.7 and a max of 4.
The max is quite close. The min is quite far away, so the min was probably one off. Yeah. But we can make it 1,000.
Let's do another 10 quick runs and check it.
Sure.
Just do another 10 quick runs and double check it. Stat fans out there, you'll know that if you the more runs like this you do, the more accurate your data is going to be. Yeah. So here we can see we're getting the same sort of stats. Mean average is 3,500. 4.3 is a max, 4.2 is a minimum.
Yeah.
So I guess this makes it it is a balancing point, because do we want the players to be able to always unlock all of the spells, or is it okay that they've got to have a good run to be able to unlock all the spells?
Yeah, I guess definitely not. They should not always have the money for it.
And actually, I say that obviously in the game we're not just that's not going to be the only thing that the player can buy. So it's kind of
course
slightly irrelevant that they either will or they won't buy them.
Yeah, and let's do not 3, let's do 6 spells. Let's do 3 novice spells, 3 intermediate spells, for instance. Okay. So out of money, we're gonna have the costs should probably be different, so we're gonna need converters for each of them. Unfortunately, we're gonna have 6 converters here, 1 for each different spell. And
look, I'll tidy that up for you.
Sure.
For those of you who don't know how to do this, this is a great thing. You highlight all of those converters, then using these options here, we can align them, and we can align them so they're all lined up beautifully. Oh, amazing! And then I'm going to have to do the same on your pools there, Cesar.
Yeah, because I was hasty when placing them.
There we go. That's better.
Okay, those are all gonna be pool all. Not sure if they should be automatic. I guess they should. I mean, we're not doing anything with the money anyway, so in this model at least. So yeah. And the costs, should it be? So I'm thinking we're working with an average of 3,500 coins. The novice ones should obviously be cheaper. Novice can be, I don't know, 300. So the 3 novice spells will be 300, and the intermediate ones will be 800. And let's go with strength, agility, intelligence. Let's give them some strength names. So for strength, we're gonna have cleave, let's say, and the intermediate, the beginner on top, Matthew. Or the novice on top. The ones on top are novice. The ones on Thunder. Okay, so that's gonna be
I'll just give a quick commentary. One of the reasons why we're not using a level check system to purchase the spells, like you need to be X level to buy the spell, is because the money itself is going to manage that. Meaning, you probably won't have enough money in the early game to buy the intermediate spells, but when it comes time for you to buy the intermediate spells as a player, then you're probably at the right level to be using them because of your attributes. So that sort of serves as the balancing point when it comes to buying the spells.
Yeah, and it is certainly important to balance between the coins economy and the attribute economy and the experience economy. And also it opens up paths for players where they can, for instance, skip a novice spell to hoard some coins and try and purchase an intermediate spell early on. So maybe they will suffer because they didn't buy the novice spell. They're going to struggle. But once they buy the intermediate spell, they're going to be a bit ahead of the curve. So it's going to be a worthwhile investment to do so. So it opens up different player decisions. Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely agree.
For beginner agility, we're going to have, dodge, and the intermediate one's going to be, I'm just going to call it haste. I have no better names coming out of my head. And for intelligence, we're going to have ignite and fireball, let's say. Those are easy.
Let's just take some.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not horrible color here, is it?
So Mo, for the spells, so they should have the strength, agility, and intelligence are not going to affect the player's ability to purchase them, but they are going to determine the effectiveness of the spell, right?
Correct.
Yeah. In that case, Matthew, we're going to need to have a look at some numbers like cleave, for instance. It's going to deal damage in an AoE circle around the player, whatever. Strength is going to affect the damage that the cleave deals. So we're going to need, where you conveniently type beginner spells, we're going to need to add another pool, which is going to track the damage that the cleave deals. So let's see how you make this look pretty.
I can make anything look pretty.
I know you can. I'm curious. That's why I'm curious to see it.
So what's the purpose of the pool?
We want to have a look. I'm just placing it there as a placeholder, but we want to have a look at. It's going to be a register probably, but we will track how much damage. Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you buy multiple cleave spells?
No.
Just the one.
No, it's not going to be a pool. It's going to be a register, which is going to be cleave damage. It's going to be named.
What I was going to do is just turn these off if they're not going to be available.
You can set the capacity to 1.
Oh, that's true. That'll work.
Your method works as well. They're both. I'm not sure if the converter is going to pool now and just waste the resources or not.
Let's find out.
So because we already have a haste attribute, I'm thinking of changing the name of the haste spell.
Please help us.
Sure, I'll do that.
Power shot, yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna have cleave damage. Matthew, you want to check if it's yeah, let's check that. Sure.
Yeah, it's not working.
Why? Give it just because it.
No, we had to go in there.
It was two.
It
Yeah,
drained
it was. Okay. I didn't know.
that. Just go through and just add a less than one on all of these. And what that's going to do, it's. Oh my god. I have to make that a little bit bigger to cover it. Less than one. So once this pool's got one resource in, it's going to turn off the converter. Oh, thanks, Chesnut.
I got you.
I'll have to add a little. Perfect.
Yeah. So for cleave, as I was saying, damage is the factor. So we can do a bunch of different stuff to it. We can also, for instance, if it has a cooldown, we can decrease the cooldown, let's say. But I'm just gonna stick with damage for this example. And we're gonna base the damage off of our strength. So from our primary attributes from strength, I'm gonna pull a connection into cleave damage, and A is gonna check the fact that we have cleave unlocked basically. So the variable coming from cleave is gonna check that we have cleave unlocked, and the variable coming from strength is gonna determine the value of our cleave. Now for the value of the cleave damage, I'm just gonna go with a simple number. Let's say the base damage of cleave is, I don't know, 50, and every point of strength that you have will increase the damage by 5, just coming up with random numbers. And that damage will only be available when you have invested in cleave. So by typing this formula into the register, basically we're checking if cleave is unlocked with larger A than 0, and if cleave is unlocked, then we have a base damage of 50 plus each point of strength is going to add another 5 in there. So
that A greater than 0, so that's going to have a look at to see whether or not the player has that, multiplied by 50 plus B times 5. Nice. So the higher the strength level, the higher the cleave damage, if they've got the cleave spell, which they need to buy with monies.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and for instance, for dodge is gonna have, let's say, if we're thinking, at least I'm thinking Dark Souls types of games, dodges have iframes, right? So a period of time during which the player is invulnerable to damage. Upgrading your agility can increase the number of iframes that you get in your dodge. So for instance, instead of cleave damage, we're gonna have dodge iframes, and yeah, it's gonna be kind of the same deal, as in we're gonna check if we have the skill. You're gonna get, I don't know, 5 iframes of invincibility, and each point that you put into dodge is gonna give you 1 extra frame. So this formula is gonna be a bit with lower numbers than the previous one. Basically, each agility is gonna add another iframe to it. And obviously for ignite, we can have tick duration, I don't know, we can have damage, we can have tick duration, we can have cooldown for mages, I don't know, mana cost decrease. So there's a bunch of different things that you can look at to improve in the different skills.
Nice.
Intermediate ones should probably be stronger. Let's do one intermediate one as well. Let's do Thunder for the warrior, since we already have Cleave. Now Cleave, it's important to take into account, again, Cleave sounds like an AoE type of spell, right? So you're going to hit multiple enemies with. Those multiple hit spells are usually weaker in damage compared to single hit, right? Because you have the extra benefit of hitting everyone around you. So if Cleave is 50, Thunder, which might be a single target, let's say, spell, is gonna need to be extra stronger. So it's a higher level spell, it's intermediate, and it's single target. So from 50, I think I'm gonna go up to maybe 200 or 300. So the difference should be quite sizable. Again, I'm gonna get A from the Thunder, and I'm gonna get my B from the strength. And formula is the same as until now, so it's gonna be with larger to check, and then we're gonna do, I don't know, let's say 300, and for each point of strength that you have, you'll add another 20. So that should be, yeah.
Perfect.
I'm just gonna paste that into formula and look at Thunder damage. If you hit play right now and the player eventually invests into the spells, we should see how the registers shift from 0 to the values as soon as there we go.
So there, that one's,
yeah, and because they have
70.
a strength of 4, yeah,
perfect.
it's working as intended. If you were to increase your strength, agility, and intelligence when leveling up, which should probably be an option, I'm even thinking that the player gets to choose which one they want to invest in, then they would further increase the cleave damage. So.
Yeah, I think that's the goal of the attributes, where, remember at the start of the live stream, you were asking me, after the player levels up, they get a certain amount of points. Do they level up? Do the attributes sort of increase in number automatically, or does the player invest in them? And I think, I agree with you that the player should have the choice to invest in the attributes after they level up.
Yeah. So as well as having kind of this generating skill points for every time they have a level up, we kind of want to have something where they're getting some kind of attribute points that they can spend.
Yeah, it's two different. There are a lot of games which give the player multiple different points when upgrading, when leveling up. So you can invest in both skills and stats at the same time.
And then should we do something where it's primary and then secondary? So some levels they get a primary, some levels they get a secondary.
I think we can do primary at each level and secondary every couple of levels or every more levels.
Well, we're going to need
strength, agility, and intelligence you should be able to invest in constantly to improve your overall performance of the character. But unlocking spells can be like I know that when I reach, let's say, level 30, I'm going to unlock that spell, and I'm even though I'm level 27, I'm constantly thinking about it and adjusting my build accordingly. So when I eventually hit level 30, I'm going to be a powerhouse. That sort of mentality, I think is fun.
I like that. And actually, we've kind of done some of the maths already on this, because we've got plus greater or equal to 25, and we probably don't want a player to be able to max out archery, magic, and survival. We probably just want them to be able to max out one and then have two medium and then two high if needed. So we could do, so in total we've got 6 to start off with. Let's just do a step. We've got another 24 that are coming into it from the start. We might want to split this actually and determine how many primary and how many secondary attributes.
we should treat them differently.
Yeah.
And I was thinking right now, when you mentioned that we want the player to not be able to unlock them all, we can do sort of what Mass Effect does, as in have trees that are a combination of the two, that don't have skills as So for a warrior, if you are interested in warrior type skills, you're going to go warrior because they provide the best warrior skills. But maybe you like both warrior and mage, and you can do some battle mage shenanigans like Mo was mentioning. So you can invest in a skill tree that's kind of a combination of the two, but weaker versions of each of them. You can, however, get both worlds sort of. So it's up to the player.
I think what's also interesting is sort of the balancing of that. So as a designer, if we're going to make primary attributes available at every level, then the impact on the direct damage or the direct effect on the spell shouldn't be very significant. And the secondary attributes, because you get them less frequent, they need to really make an impact on the skill trees. And unlocking that new tier really needs to make a difference because you get them at a rarer pace. Now, we can also do it the opposite way. So we can make it so players can sort of get the secondary spells at every level, and then the impact between the tiers of the skills is not very impactful between them. And then we can make it so primary attributes can be given, every now and then, but the impact on the spells, the direct impact they have on the spells is much more significant because they're being given at a rarer pace. So basically the idea is, regardless of primary or secondary, as a designer, you can sort of play with both. And the idea is the one that is given rarer needs to give the player a sense of accomplishment and a feel-good moment when they get the reward of investing in the rarer attribute. So I just wanted to share that commentary from a designer's point of view or perspective.
Yeah, I really like that. So let's just do we've got a couple of minutes left. So I think there's lots more we could do on this. And actually, I've kind of really enjoyed this, Mo. This has been a really good idea. What we could do, how do you feel about next week? Coming back and actually extending this a bit further, maybe adding in some other mechanics into this system.
I'm totally up. I feel like this is a bit unfinished, so I'd like to.
It is a bit, but let's just do a quick summary of the different mechanics that we've got going on here. So we kicked off today's stream. I built a really quick and dirty little black box system that's just generating XP points. We extended this out so that as well as generating XP points, we're also generating money that we're then going to use to buy beginner spells and intermediate spells. And we looked at ways of kind of using our stats from our stat system to determine the impact of those spells once the player been able to unlock them. We had a look at linear, exponential, and then an array-based leveling up system. And there's an example of each of them. We've extended upon the exponential system. We can easily kind of grab these connections and attach them to a different progression curve, if you like. This is straight, this is exponential, and this is whatever the hell we want it to be at each level. We then looked at building out a skill tree. So we've got 50 different skills. We've defined the first 3, archery, magic, and survival. You have to unlock the first one before you can go through and unlock any of the others. And some of these are gated based on the stats that the player has, or the attributes. So we're kicking off with primary attributes, strength, agility, intelligence, and then we have our secondary, haste, spirit, and constitution. And at some point as we go through and we upgrade these, it's going to, players will eventually kind of start to pick out a path that they want to develop their player in, and some type of specialization. This has been fantastic. Mo, any kind of final words for us?
Yeah, so I hope this was enjoyable for everyone. What I'm gonna do throughout the week is maybe fine tune this diagram, balance some things out so that the community can jump in and continue from there. And next week, since we're doing that part 2, I do have a couple of more systems that we can that would sort of add to the complexity of that initial leveling system that I think would round this out to be, you know, a very solid leveling system at the end. Those two final systems, one of them is going to be a perk system, and the other one is going to be a bit of a surprise. So, you know, tune in next week, and I think you'll enjoy it too.
Nice. And in the meantime, if you want to go through and play with this model yourself, just click the link down in the description and it'll open up this model for you inside your Machinations. You can have a play about with it, see the mechanics we've used, and add to it or change them as you see fit. Anything else to add, Cesar?
Have a wonderful evening.
Have a wonderful evening, everybody. You too, Cesar. Thank you very much. We'll see you all next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe and other things that professional YouTubers say at the end of streams. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.